Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, coming back from Christmas break. Vasili, Gianarakos, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing really great. Obviously with Christmas and the holidays, it's a great time just to be around family and friends and relax a little bit. So pretty nice to get that time and get some good food going too with the family and can't complain. How about you, your Eve, just your Christmas and everything in general? How you doing,
Yeah,
man?
doing well. I'm Jewish, so Christmas is kind of a non-event to some degree, but it's a really nice time. I really like Christmas. But mostly it's just like a lesser version of what people were celebrating or experiencing. But we did stuff like prior, and we did it for like Hanukkah, and we did a whole gift exchange and all that stuff. So we got it out of the way early. So primarily it's just watch a couple Flyers games, which we'll talk about, and then that's it. Just enjoy the quietness, which I enjoy. I like time off.
Definitely, yeah. It's good to recharge the batteries for everybody. That's what this period of time kind of is, right? For a lot of people. So
Yes, yes, and especially, and we'll talk about that as a topic even for the Flyers. So before we get started, just want to remind everybody to please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell for notifications. Get updates on when we release our episodes. Go to Spotify and iTunes and follow us there for the audio version. And then if you could give us a rating on iTunes, it's also a tremendous help. We got a few. But if you guys could give us some more, that'd be awesome. Again, it helps with our recommendations and just growing the show in general. So it's awesome. So thank you all for the support that you've given us so far. And again, yeah, anything else beyond that is just a gift. So thank you all. And also shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. They're not open from what I understand. But again, you can get their food at DoorDash. So don't forget about Jim's Steaks. All right. So right before the Flyers Christmas break, did have a couple back-to-back games. They lost the kind of a highly competitive game, but another frustrating loss to the Nashville Predators. A game where they probably could have had it. This is a lot of the Flyers' losses this year, and they kind of dropped the ball there, gave up that empty netter at the end, trying to battle back. They lost that game 4-2 overall. Not their best performance, obviously not coming out with a win, but not a horrific game. Frost did score a goal in that one to kind of get it going. And then the more eventful game that happened right before the break was the Detroit Red Wings game, which happened on that Friday where kind of, what was it, Friday or Saturday?
yeah, it was Friday the
It was Friday.
22nd. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, so that was kind of a crazy game to watch because I was telling you, Vasily, that I was kind of watching from the side. I was at dinner, Shabbat dinner, and I was kind of watching it, and I'm like looking at the score, and I almost can't believe it. So I kind of missed the beginning of the game and had to go back and kind of rewatch it. But obviously, a game where the Flyers went down 5-1, and then kind of systematically worked their way back into not just tying the game, but also taking a lead. It was short lived, unfortunately, but just kind of a crazy game. They did end up losing that game in a shootout. But I think it's still kind of a win just because of the resilience shown, the ability to battle back, and to recover from a period where they really left Carter Hart high and dry in that one. And we'll talk about that. But we talked about it before we started filming. I saw some reactions online and people just shitting on Hart. And if you really go back and look at those goals, the first 5 goals, none of them are on Hart. If anything, a couple of them, he made a couple desperation saves on there. That was bad team play. And I guarantee that that's probably the energy that helped them come back in that game because they kind of left him high and dry. It was his first game back, after the illness issues, and they really did not play well. And some people I saw online, they don't play in front of Hart, and this is now Erson's team, blah, 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 like all this absolute garbage, especially when you consider that Hart literally won NHLPA, voted best goalie of the week prior to that for playing absolutely exceptional. And then, just to have kind of a clunker one period for the Flyers in a game where I won't say he played his best ever. He gave up that dreadful 6th goal, which was kind of, I would say, a combination of his fault and kind of a little bit of bad luck there. But obviously Flyers were not able to hold the lead. But just a fantastic game to watch, at least from a Flyers standpoint, and watch the resilience and being an away game too. And as a Detroit fan, I mean, they probably weren't very happy. They have struggled mightily of late, the Red Wings, and they allowed the Flyers back into that game. And the Flyers scored dirty but good goals. Quoting Jim Jackson there with a lot of deflections, tip-ins. They just found any way to make it happen. And I was telling you, Vasili, and I'll open up to you. I felt after that second goal was scored and the Flyers made it 5-2, I felt a comeback. Like it just felt like everything was turning because they scored early. And then they scored again, obviously quickly after that. And then after that, I was kind of like, this game's wide open at this point. So what did you think about those couple games?
Yeah, so just obviously the Nashville game, I think that was probably more frustrating of a loss, just in the sense
Yeah,
that it was tied with about 5 minutes left. And then, an inability to kind of forecheck the incoming Nashville player by Atkinson in the middle there ends up leading to the goal, and a giveaway by him as well. And then Atkinson, not to pile on him, but he also had a breakaway chance earlier in that game he doesn't
had a
score on.
few.
So yeah, he's obviously struggling just to get on the board in terms of goals, but that wasn't a really good sequence for him, and that kind of cost the Flyers there. So obviously the Nashville game, you would want to rebound against Detroit after a loss like that. It does not start well for them, being down 5-1 after the first period. But like you said, I would say out of those goals, like there's a couple tips that you maybe want to see Hart potentially save, but it's also a rusty goalie coming in. You have to remember he didn't play a game before that December 22nd matchup against the Wings since December 9th against Colorado. So that's a couple weeks span for a goaltender, and that could be tough. And he wasn't really getting practice time either because of just the nature of what he was dealing with, like the illness. He couldn't really be on the ice very often too. So the rust can kind of seep into your game from that point. And for a rusty goalie, you want to have your defense, be on point and kind of ensure that they have their coverages set out. And most of those goals against in the first, it was just the fact that either, a rebound, Hart makes the initial save and nobody's covering the guy in front that pots the rebound, or open men in front for tips, right? And that's two of Detroit's goals where they're able to tip them in. And you're kind of wondering, like, okay, if there's anybody in front contesting, those open battles in front of Carter Hart, do those goals, do those tips even happen? So I think a lot of that can be kind of laid to the defense and their kind of poor play in the first period. Obviously, the main thing and the silver lining in this all, even though it's two losses here essentially to go into the break, is that the Flyers show resiliency, even in the Nashville game as well, right? Like they go down against Nashville 2-1, then tied up 2-2. And then same with Detroit, obviously the big comeback, right? They go down 5-1. They're able to even take the lead. And just that final goal, just to kind of clear it up for everybody, just for people who don't know, right? Like I grew up playing goalie. So that thing that Hart did there, the reverse vertical horizontal movement, that's essentially what all goalies, all levels are learning. So he is just doing the reverse vertical horizontal positioning where his leg is kind of reverse vertical to the post. And from that point, like you can have every once in a while, if a shot's coming in from a weird angle, it might bounce in off your pad. Like it is what it is. That's just the way that goalies are kind of, being taught in this day and age. So, for him to kind of revamp his whole style just to stop one of those goals from randomly going in, at a inopportune time, like no goalie's going to do that. It's unfortunate, but that's just kind of the technique of it.
Yeah, it was
So
some bad luck.
yeah, it's a bad luck goal. It's not one you see very often. It's not like it's a 5-hole goal that's like brutal from in front of the net. That's kind of something where you look at and say, hey, like he's got to have that. Like obviously you want him to have this one too and be a little kind of heavier on that post, but when there's a little gap, the pucks can squeak in there. But I think what's interesting, obviously, is just Morgan Frost and Couturier continuing to kind of drive the offense the last couple of games. Like Couturier back-to-back games with goals going into the break. Same with Morgan Frost as well. So that's a good sign. And I think a goal for the Flyers will probably be to get back to allowing 3 goals or less going forward here, because the last 2 games, they allow 4 goals, and then obviously the 7 to the Red Wings with the shootout goal included. So I think that'll probably be a focus of the team to try to um, you know key in on the defensive aspects and got to get back to playing that really defensively strong game, because that's what has brought in the Flyers the most success so far this season, when they really clamping things down defensively in their own end and
Totally agree.
support each other. Where
Yeah.
like you look at the beginning of that Red Wings game, and you can see that even though the defense aren't playing the greatest, the forwards aren't really giving them much help in terms of the back checking either. So it's almost like a whole team situation there, where they're not really helping hard out as a whole, essentially.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And they just didn't look they did not play in that first period the way they played to be successful.
Yeah,
And
but it
obviously being down,
happens
yeah,
in a
it
long
does happen.
season.
It's been rare, but I think it's important to see how the team responded. And then looking at the way Tippett kind of played in that game, and how like that goal he scored to take the lead, where it was just like a goal scorer's goal with that shot up the wing, and then to follow up for the loose puck behind it. Obviously, Reimer didn't play the best either. Wasn't like a goalie showcase type of
No,
game.
not at
It was a
all.
high scoring game in general, right?
Fun game to watch, though. I mean,
Yeah, it was an entertaining game, and I will say this too. One, that pass from Frost to Bobby Brink was
yeah,
sick.
really nice.
Very nice goal. And then Scott Lawton just kind of getting on the board there, getting a goal and an assist in that one. He's been a little bit snake bit, similar to Atkinson for a little bit here. So it's good to see him getting going. And the riding on Atkinson thing, I feel like he hasn't really played poorly. He just hasn't scored. He has some assists over the past few games. He just hasn't been scoring as usual, and he's been getting breakaways. Like those don't
Yeah,
come out of nowhere, right? So the effort is there, the play is there from him. And I have a feeling he's going to start getting back on the board soon. But Owen Tippett, I thought looked like a goal scorer in that game, and the offense really turned it on when they had to. Right, they smelled
yeah.
blood, and they were determined to come back in that game. And not only that, after they scored the fifth goal, they were feeling it, and they're like, "We're gonna win this game in regulation too." It was deflating when they gave up that goal. That's when Detroit kind of, you know, came back into the game. I would say mentally when Larkin scored that goal from the corner. But overall, I thought the Flyers responded really well. And again, this is like a fake goalie controversy that I feel like people are like waiting for a reason to toss Hart to the side. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that's majority of people. I'll say that. I think it's a minority. But I think it's an immature response. And
Yeah.
literally, the guy won goaltender of the week right before getting sick. So like to forget that so quickly and to be like, "Oh, Erson's the man here now." It's like,
But
okay, or the team is just playing well and has two good goalies.
Well, I think that's really the key, and that's really what's occurring, right? Is the team's playing well in front of no matter who's in net, whether it's Urson, whether it's Hart.
Right.
And I would beg to differ that, if the Flyers aren't in this situation where they have two goalies they can rely on, like Hart, like Urson here, they may be worse off just in terms of like overall standings or their success in general, just in terms of getting points out of games. Because look at the beginning of the year, right? It's almost like two stretches telling two different stories for both goalies here. So beginning of the season, Urson really struggles. Who's there, to pick things up and have a really strong start and kind of cement things for the team opening the season out of the gate? Carter Hart. And then when Hart kind of runs into this illness trouble here, who's there for the Flyers in that situation and who's kind of rebounded after the slow start is Urson. So I would say both of them have been crucial, really, to the Flyers' successes so far. And then I did just want to mention too, like even despite the two losses against Nashville and Detroit since November 7th and that loss to the San Jose Sharks. The Flyers are still tops in the league. Like they're 13, 4-3, 725 win percentage, and that's in 20 games played, and that's 29 points out of those 20 games. So they're still tops in the league since that Sharks loss, even without those wins going to the break. So it's showing that they're still in a good position here. They're just gonna have to obviously get back into the win column if they're gonna continue to stay in a playoff spot. I believe going into the games against Vancouver and against Seattle coming up here. The Flyers are third in the Metropolitan Division with 40 points. Washington and Tampa Bay are in the wild card positions with 39 points each. So, like, it's a close and a tough battle. Then you even have Carolina with 38 points sitting out of the wild card there. So, it's going to be a tough one just between all those teams that are there. And I think the Flyers have positioned themselves well. But, like we kind of stated in the offseason before the season, like, they're essentially right on the bubble of the playoffs, right? Like the team that's first out of the playoffs, 38 points. The wild card teams are 39 points. Flyers are third in the Metro with 40. So I think that's around where they're going to likely stay the rest of the season, right? They're going to be battling for a playoff spot just based on the way they've played to start off. You know, barring some unforeseen like huge losing streak, which I don't really see happening. Just looking at the resilience this team has shown, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they finish off. But yeah, like what do you think, Yariv, just in terms of the Flyers so far up to the Christmas break, and do you think there's anything in particular they'll need to do to really continue the success going forward?
I think they have to do what they've already done. I think the record has shown as they got ramped up. So I don't really think they need to change anything. If anything, just don't let your foot off the pedal. And that is a topic we're going to go into at the end of this. But um, yeah, let's talk about the next game. We'll talk about after the Christmas break and what they need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so I guess it was announced today that Erson will be getting the start against the red hot Vancouver Canucks. Also makes sense considering Hart potentially still is dealing with some of this sickness issue. But it looks like Hart will probably get the next game against Seattle.
Because back to
Uh,
backs, yeah.
yeah, because it's back to back games. Exactly. I guess how do you think that Erson will do against Vancouver? Right, this is
I
a team that's been red hot offensively, so the Flyers have to play well in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really good test for him just because they have a really productive offense, obviously. I believe they're amongst some of the highest scoring teams in the league just based
Yeah,
on the metrics. So when you look at that, I mean, the Flyers are going to be in for a team that's going to pressure them a lot offensively, a team that's going to throw a lot of shots to the net. So they're going to have to be ready for volume there. So I think it's a good game as a measuring stick for Ursa just to see like, okay, this is one of the better teams in the league. Typically in the past, like, the Flyers were giving Hart more of the games against some of the upper echelon teams. Like that Colorado game, Hart was in net. The Vegas games, right? Hart was in net. Other than the Dallas game, really, I don't think Urson's really faced too much top competition in terms of like the best teams in the league type thing. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles it. But I mean, he seems like a very calm goaltender in the net, right? Like not a lot of things really get to him. So I'm assuming it's going to be the same. But obviously, you're going to need a strong performance from him just against a really offensive heavy team. And for the Flyers in general, it'll be a good way for them to kind of look at, okay, some of the best teams in the league. How do we stack up against them? Obviously, Vancouver is one of them here. But it's more just figuring out like how do you rebound here after a game where you gave up 6 goals against a really high-powered offense. Like there's obviously coverages that were missed in that final game. Those are things the Flyers are going to want to correct and take out of their game. One game doesn't make a season, so I expect the team to bounce back and have a way better showing defensively. Like more often than not this year, right? They've been way better defensively, really stingy defensively. Like they're a top 10 team in the league in terms of goals allowed per game. I believe they're ninth or 10th in the league there. So, they've been a really stingy defensive team. So I do expect that to continue, even though you're playing Vancouver that are a good team. But I think the keys to it will be what we've seen throughout the whole season, essentially, right? Like if the Flyers do not have support from their forwards with this aggressive style they're playing in terms of the transitions, like they're gonna get burned a lot of times, right? Because when you have defensemen pinching and forwards aren't there to cover them, there's a lot of odd man rushes going the other way. So they'll just have to get back to that system and playing, as a 5-man unit cohesively defensively, which they didn't really do in the first period specifically against Detroit. But what do you think, Yariv, just about Vancouver and how to kind of stop that high-powered
yeah.
offense?
I think I'll talk about both of them here because, but both competitions because this is what goes through my mind. The one thing the Flyers have strength against are, and I've said this on this podcast several times, is that teams who rely heavily on offense And again, I think Vancouver's a good team all around. But if you're going to rely on outscoring the Flyers, you're going to struggle against the Flyers. So I actually think they match up pretty well. If you're a team that's going to come in here and think that you're going to come in and just score a bunch of goals,
Yeah,
based on what the Flyers have done so far, that's probably not going to be the case. You're going to be in a tight game. And then I look at that game against Seattle where they're not as powerful this year, but last year they were a very stingy defensive team.
very
I
quick
think
team.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Flyers struggle more against Seattle than they do Vancouver, and that they beat Vancouver and struggle more against Seattle. Just because of the way Seattle plays their physical game, they can play the Flyers style against them. Just like I bring up the Islanders, right? A team that the Flyers have struggled against, who always seem to be a pain in our ass.
Well,
And because of the style of play. And I think we'll experience some of that. So I don't think it even really matters which goalie's in net for which game. I think it just depends on the opposition team. Having said that, I don't think that the coaches are making the goaltending decision based off of that. I think it's actually a really good point what you said, that Erson hasn't played a lot of top competition in the league, and they probably want to get a look at him against one of the best teams in the league, which has clearly been Vancouver.
yeah, exactly. Like Vancouver's obviously uh, playing tremendously at this point. I believe they're first in the league, tied with the Rangers for 23 wins. They're also first in the league, like I was saying earlier, for goals for. They have 135 goals for this season. Second's Colorado with 124, so they got almost
How are they doing in the
even
goals against
goals
department?
against. They are, one second here,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, I didn't look it up.
They are just two ahead of the Flyers. So
Okay.
they're seventh fewest in goals against.
So it'll
Flyers
be a tough game.
are ninth fewest. So yeah, it'll be a tough game. Like Vancouver's, essentially the top team in the league, I believe by the standings. I mean, that's for a reason. Obviously, they're playing really, really well. But something to kind of keep in mind is the Flyers did beat them earlier this season. And
Yes.
in that game, they really outshot them heavily. So I'm wondering if the same kind of trend will continue. That's obviously very early in a season. So teams are still working the kinks out, and Vancouver's obviously got them worked out considering they're first in the league at this point. But I just think for the Flyers and with the goalies, I don't even think the team is really like saying, "Oh yeah, we got a plan for Urson here, plan for Hart here." I think they know no matter what the team is kind of responding and playing pretty well in front of either goalie they're facing. I think it's more just figuring out like, okay, what's going to give us the best chance to win in what scenario. And maybe I think you have a point, Yuri, with the fact that the Flyers, I think when they're playing teams that kind of play a similar style to them, they do struggle more. So you have Hart in there against Seattle, who maybe would give them some bigger saves or maybe might, technically be more established as a goaltender than Urson. So maybe they want to do that because they're kind of expecting something like that. Maybe they see something stylistically, right? Where they're like, okay, let's get Urson in against Vancouver. Stylistically, the high scoring teams are doing a lot better against. And let's get Hart in against Seattle because stylistically, we're not doing that great against teams that are kind of playing a similar style to us, slowing it down, bogging it down. But yeah, like that's definitely a great point to bring up. Just kind of highlighting, similar to the Islanders that the Flyers have struggled with. Seattle also plays that kind of, grinded style where they're really quick in the neutral zone as well. They can use their speed, but like they're forechecking team. And even John Tortorella mentioned this that the Flyers like they're relying on that transition offense. But he even said in one of his press conferences before the break here that if the team thinks they're going to go through games without forechecking heavily and be competitive going through the stretch run here, it's going to be a rude awakening. So I think that's something that the Flyers are probably going to be looking for in that Seattle game coming up. Like they want to probably see the team get more involved in a forechecking type style while also have that transition play. I mean, there's a fine line between both because if you're going to do a lot of forechecking, you might want to dump it in versus like carry the puck and look for transitions. But I think the coaching staff really wants the team to be able to identify, okay, when can we go for that transition break? When should we, cut our losses and maybe do a dump in and try to retrieve and then create a scoring chance that way. Because it's true, like you're not going to be able to create all your opportunities off the rush. And if you're looking to do that, you're going to be sending a lot of stretch passes into a lot of areas where they can get intercepted. So the
Yeah.
Flyers will have to adjust for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one adjustment that the Flyers have made, and just going off of Twitter for this, that Owen Tippett will be moving up to the top line, or at least is getting looks at the top line right now, and that means Tyson Forrester will be dropping down, most likely, I assume, to play with Frost and Atkinson. And I think that's like a double thing there. One, I think Frost and Tippett play well together. So I'm a little bit reticent there, especially with Frost having a couple goals in a row. And Tippett having, a couple big goals that have been assisted by Frost. But I get it at the same time. This is a line that we thought would be the top line for the Flyers. So I think they probably want to give it another look. And Forrester has played well, but he's not like lighting it up, right? You really want to have a top line that scores every single night. And I think that's kind of the idea here. And then the other prong to that is trying to get Cam Atkinson going. Maybe they're thinking, hey, maybe we play Atkinson with Forrester and with Frost, and that's just kind of a new mix in general. And maybe we can get something going there for Atkinson and for Forrester to start scoring a little bit more. Though the rookies, they comes in spurts. You see, Bobby Brink has been scoring again. Forrester stopped, but again, they're rookies. So it's kind of understandable. But I think it's just kind of a new look line that we haven't seen yet. And I think it's interesting. But I'm really excited to see Tippett there. I would actually ideally like that to stick. Or
Just for
I'd like
some
to,
games, yeah.
yeah. Or I'd like to see what I've been waiting to see, which is Farabee on the top line, which we haven't seen at all. And for some reason, even though his 5-on-5 productivity has been through the roof,
Tops in the
um,
league essentially, or top five
yeah,
as we've gone through before.
yeah,
But
we're still not seeing it. So people like talk about like, Frost getting the short end of the stick and certain players. It's like, Farabee's doing everything that's being asked of him and he's not really getting power play
they
time. And, go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
they have a deep offensive lineup. So I think Tortorella is really trying to
Yeah,
juggle and
yeah.
give players certain ice time based on like performances. Like obviously Tippett's been playing well as of late, the last few games here. So I think you see him get bumped up due to that with Tippett, Couturier, Konechny. Like that was a combination we even kind of talked about in the offseason, right? That we did want to see Tippett and Couturier together, just to kind of see what the defensive prowess of Couturier can do for a guy like Tippett. He obviously opens up a lot of space. We see what he's done for Konechny this season, just in being able to, help his game offensively with, the defensive aspects, not having to worry about it as much. When you have a guy like Couturier on your line who's so good defensively, and typically when he's on the ice, right, the Flyers have possession, they're in the other team's end. That's why, he's one of the best, Corsi 4 players in the league at this point, and probably right in the conversation for the Selke again. There is a stat I want to bring up later that Jason Martinez mentioned on Flyers Daily recently, and it was kind of comparing Couturier's Selke winning season to his season.
Bring it up right
Right.
now.
Yeah, sure. We'll get it going. But pretty much with that stat, Couturier's Selke winning season is identical basically to this
I
season
did
that he's
see
had
that.
so far. Yeah, so through 31 games in his Selke winning season, he had 23 points. In 31 games this season, he has 23 points. The plus minus is off. Like in his Selke winning season, he was a +7. In this season, he's a +5. The penalty minutes are exactly the same, 14 minutes penalty time. The even strength points are 7 5-on-5 points. He's got one power play goal in the Selke winning season, two power play goals this season, three power play assists this season, four in the Selke winning season. And then essentially the shooting percentage was 9% in the Selke winning season, and then 10.6% this season. The time on ice actually is even more so far to this point than he did or than he had in the Selke winning season. I think it's about 1951 average time on ice to the 1926 average time on ice in the season he won the Selke. So it's pretty crazy that he's basically having an identical year so far after double back surgery to when he won the Selke Trophy, which just speaks to how great the Couturier's been playing. And if anybody's been wondering if he's back or if he's the same old Couturier, this is basically showing that he's pretty much the same guy. And if you watch a lot of the games, you can see that. But just back to kind of Tippett, Couturier, and Konechny as a line, I definitely think that with the way Couturier is playing, why not put your two best offensive guys next to him and see how he can even open things up for them further in terms of the offense. But like you said, right, like if that line doesn't click, I think Farabee getting moved up there next would be an interesting thing to try. He's
Yeah.
had a lot of chemistry with Couturier in the past. There was a line, I believe, in the COVID year. It was Couturier, JVR, Farabee, and it was one of like the top lines in the league before Couturier got hurt. So that would be one that's interesting to try for sure.
They're a great mix, Farabee and Kuz. That's why I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I think it's mostly because of the Bobby Brink Farabee
Yeah.
connection.
No, I agree. Yeah, and just for reference, like the second line there would be Forster, Frost, Atkinson, and then it's Farabee, Paling, Brink, and then you have Delorier, Lawton, and Hathaway, which makes sense. But I'm definitely interested to see like what happens with the lineup once Kate's gets back, because that'll be coming up soon, right? It's almost at, I believe, the around
Good
6 or 7
point.
week mark. And it was about, I believe it was like a 6 to 8 week timeline. So I wonder what happens with this lineup. There's going to be even more kind of adjusting on the fly. But I do wonder, like, does Nick Delorier come out at some point?
That's
Because I think you might as well try, a fourth line of Cates, Lawton, and Hathaway. And that's like almost a shutdown type of line. So
yeah, I am not expecting that, unfortunately, but
me neither, but
I think that is the right move to make. Not that Delorier should sit and not play any more games. I think he still deserves. I don't think he's played poorly, especially defensively. He has not played poorly at all. He's always in the right place at the right time. He's 100% energy. He's great physically. He's
fights
had
at good
some big,
moments. Like he hasn't had
yeah,
moments where he's fought at like bad times and the other team grabs the
yeah,
momentum and you see the Flyers lose. It's
yeah.
typically been the other way, right? So
Yeah, yeah. No, I think he's done a really good job at his role. So I do understand why he is not getting benched. But at a certain point, that is your most talented lineup. And I would love a fourth line that could score every game. And Delorier, while he's done things well offensively, he's almost a negative there because he's not, he doesn't have a great shot. He's not a great passer. He's missed some opportunities around the net. So offensively, he's kind of like a wash.
yeah,
And I'd really like to see. I mean, I still would prefer to see Cates, and they probably won't rush to put him up in the lineup. But I still would love to see Ryan Paling play with Lawton and Hathaway, and
that
I
too.
think
Yeah,
that can be your shutdown line. And I think Cates can center a line, or maybe we move him in the wing. Though I question that, even though I think he'd be great with Couturier on the wing. But I question that because this team has been playing defense first, and which one of the wingers do you move to center? You know what I mean? It's like you're not going to be moving a winger to center. I guess you could play him on the wing on the fourth line. That's really the only option to play him as a wing over one of the top nine guys, barring any injuries. But it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a good problem to have. And I suspect he'll start on the fourth line just because, depending on how the team is doing. But I would imagine that uh, Torts wants to get him back in. I mean, he already mentioned, I forget which press conference it was. Um, I forget who he was talking about, but maybe it was Delorier actually, where he was talking about, guys getting PK time that, no, what it couldn't have been Delorier, but he was talking about somebody getting PK time where they're probably not going to be getting it because
I believe
when
Farabee, to be
it
honest.
was Farabee. Yep, you're
Yeah,
right. That when Cates comes back, he's putting Cates on the PK, so he's excited about the guy. And the guy, while hasn't been playing the best offensively,
he's an
he
asset
did.
on defense. So
Yeah, regardless, he's elite defensively. So, and he's a guy who really hasn't been here while the team has kind of gone on this run. So he probably would have got out of that scoring problem. There's also the option of putting him with Atkinson because a lot of times when you have guys who are struggling, you want to put them together,
yeah,
and we've seen that. And again, Danny Briere was part of that with that really exceptional line of Briere, Hartnell, and Ville Leno. Three guys who were struggling in their career. Leno was waived. Briere was struggling that year, and Hartnell was struggling that year. They put them together as a line, and they were just lights out. So sometimes it's good to do that too and experiment with that. But Ryan Paling has played well enough to play above. Um, I would even argue Hathaway, but really Delorier. So I don't know how you continue benching
well, yeah.
Paling.
I just think for the lineup, like you have yet to see them put their most skilled lineup technically on the ice at this point
We
for
brought
any
it up like
games.
5 times already.
So you might as well just see what it is. Like see like what maybe they play like shit and then you're like, "Hey, the mix doesn't work. Let's get Delorier back in." But I just think you owe it to the team to see what could this be if you put all your best players in at one time.
Yep.
See what you can do with it, right? Because they've been playing arguably without their best lineup every night on multiple occasions and still played really well. Just last little bit before we kind of get off the lineup talk, I did want to bring this up. It's a stat from Jay Fresh, and basically he did a sample on forwards in the league, and the data is from A3Z. And here is a list of players creating the highest quality scoring opportunities by passing this season. The list is Artemi Panarin, Connor McDavid, Evgeny Malkin, Travis Konechny, Matthew Tkachuk, Sidney Crosby, Jesper Bratt, Kirill Kaprizov, Nikita Kucherov, Mark Stone. So just I wanted to mention Konechny on that list just because even though Konechny's been scoring really well this season, he's apparently on a list of what is it, I think like 10 guys that have created the highest quality scoring opportunities this season. And he doesn't have a lot of assists. So just kind of showing that maybe Forster and Couturier haven't done the best at capitalizing in the
Maybe
chances
that's
he's
why
creating.
Tippett, to your
And
point.
yeah,
Sorry, go
exactly.
ahead.
So I just want to say maybe that's why they put Tippett up there because they think that with the way he's creating offensively with his passing, maybe having a guy like Tippett be the trigger man for some of those chances will result in more goals based off that kind of high danger chance creation that Konechny's been putting forth as a passer. So Konechny just doing it all right now for the Flyers, right? Like obviously their best goal scorer and their best passer apparently too, based on the metrics and what JFresh kind of pulled out here. So something interesting because I do think that Konechny's passing ability does get undershadowed and underrated, especially with how he's been scoring. So
Yeah, yeah, I think he's all around. I think he does so many things well. I mean, he's a star player. I mean, right now this team is led by three veterans, and that
yeah.
is Konechny, Sanheim, and Couturier.
Yeah. And look at
Um,
the guys that Konechny's like on that list with, right? Like Panarin, McDavid, Tkachuk, Crosby, Kaprizov, Kucherov. Like those are all some of the
Stone.
best guys in the league. Stone,
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah. And again, Tyson Foster's played really well, so he's been on the receiving end of those passes also. And Couturier is just, it's it's funny because he was actually struggling in the beginning of the year. So
yeah.
to some degree, he might even be playing better than his Selke season. If you really think about it over the past, like let's say 20 games of the 33.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's starting to ramp up. Like you saw
Yeah.
last two games, he has gold. I think offensively is definitely starting to
Yeah.
click a bit more for him. But obviously, when you miss 2 years, it's going to take some time to just get everything back in order in time in terms of your full game. I'm really not surprised that the defense is always going to be there from Couturier. That's his kind of standard, right? Like he's always going to be a really good defensive player, and then the offense kind of comes back after that. So
Yeah. Totally agree. Do want to do another update on the lineup. I don't know how relevant this is. I think this is more in case of injury, but Rhett Gardner was recalled again. He was loaned back to the Phantoms. We got a release of the Phantoms lineup, so I'm gonna add that into our topic list there because I think there's an interesting point here. But yeah, so Rhett Gardner will be with the team for these back-to-back games. I don't suspect, unless there's an injury, that
yeah.
he will play. But again, he's 27 going on 28, so it's not the same thing as like sitting in Ollie Lixell or, calling up a Tool Mala and not playing him in the lineup or something like that. I think it's the, right call. And he's a guy with NHL experience. So if he does play, he's got size. He's a guy who can slot in on the fourth line and not, you don't really miss a beat. If anything, we might see something good from him with his experience. All right, so you kind of brought up that question earlier, and the Flyers are on this break here. Sometimes in the past, it's hurt a team that has been red hot. Now they weren't red hot going into this break, so what can they do to do well? Get back to do what they were doing, right? You asked me that question earlier. I don't think they really need to change much. They need to get back to the way they were playing in the second and third period against the Red Wings. I mean, they shut down the Red Wings pretty much the majority of the game after that. And I also want to add that Carter Hart made exceptional saves in overtime, which we didn't really talk about
Yeah,
against a team with,
some really big robs for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, against a team that had a lot of weapons for that type of scenario. And I'll say that I think they really just need to get back to being a defensive first team. Don't worry about outscoring the other teams and just play a really annoying style of hockey, which they've done a great job doing. And I think the goaltending needs to stand up the way it's been. And everybody just needs to continue doing what they're doing. I think a key element is getting Cam Atkinson going. So maybe that's why that line change is coming too. Hoping maybe Forrester, and again, I'm assuming, but maybe Forrester can free the puck up for him a little bit there. because he's been so good on the stick check this year, probably the best on the team. I think getting Cam Atkinson going is a big one. He's a guy who right now is sixth on the team in points, but majority of those points came early on, and he hasn't really scored much beyond that. I mean, Tippett and Farabee are both above him, and he really should be on pace with those guys. Just where what he's done in his career, he can still put up 20 goals this year, but we want a little bit more of him on the scoring side, like now. And I think that's one of the things they need to do is get him going. And the biggest thing for me is fix that power play. It's still not there. It's at the bottom of the league still. And while there have been some signs that it's improving, it really has not improved much. And it does not scare the opposition at all. And I'm hoping that maybe, this break kind of allows them to, and maybe more for the coaching staff, to come up with something to get this team going. Because I don't think it's a talent issue, and I don't think it's a problem with the way the players have played regularly. I think part of it is on Rocky Thompson. Again, he's not getting the most out of the group that he does have. So I think that's a big one for me is start getting that power play going in the right direction. What about
Oh,
you?
that's really well said, Yariv. I think obviously the main thing is just continuing in the areas where the team succeeded at this point. Like you don't want to change the structure, you don't want to change the system. Obviously, they've bought in here, so there's not really much to change there. You can kind of tell, right? Like they're succeeding with the transition. They're typically, playing as a five-man unit defensively in terms of, okay, when those defensemen are looking to be aggressive and pinch at certain times in the neutral zone and the offensive zone and the blue line, the forwards are typically covering for them. So that's a sign that, there's a cohesive team here. The team's bought into what they're doing in terms of that transitional offense system. I think it's just sticking to that defense as a whole, defensive five-man unit, essentially, where, the team is blocking shots. They're willing to kind of lay themselves out on the line to do that. They're willing to cover for each other, and just quick ups and aggressive kind of outlets. That's been the key for them all year, just in the transition offense, right? Like they're the top team in goals on the rush this season so far, and the reason has been because the defense isn't afraid to send those stretch passes and look for goals on the rush. So you don't want to break anything that's already working, right? Obviously, the team is over kind of, or obviously the team has done a lot better than we've expected here to start off from the beginning of the season. So I think you don't want to change too much, but there's a few things that you have to look at that you would want to adjust. So I think one thing just for this specific road trip coming up, right? Like usually it's a trip that the Flyers don't have a lot of success on. This after, Christmas road trip. One thing to point out though is right now the Flyers are the fifth best team in the league on the road. They're 10-4-3. So they're way better than they have been in a lot of other scenarios where they've gone on this road trip and done poorly. I think that's something to take into account, that the team has shown success on the road for whatever reason. But usually when a trend like that begins, it typically continues. So the team, I think there's just probably less pressure for them on the road when you're in an opposing building. It's not your own kind of fans getting on you or anything like that. So you kind of play more loosely, more freely. So I think that'll be an ability for them to kind of jump on this road trip and continue the successes after, the last two games where they lost. And then another factor to bring up is Vancouver's the best home team in the league. So we'll see who kind of, gets the better of each other here, right? You have the best home team in the league against one of the five best road teams in the league with the Flyers. But just in terms of like improvements overall, I mean, the power play is obviously one, and we've kind of beaten a dead horse with that, right? There's just certain things that need to change. In terms of the way they're setting it up, I just think more shots on net, more aggressive. Obviously, they're not getting those open net type passing players, or they're not creating really a lot of chances through their passing on the power play. It's typically getting broken up, and the other team, they're sending the puck down the ice there. So I just think for the Flyers, the simpler they keep it on the power play, the better with the personnel that they have. And then the last key for them to continue it is just the success of the defense, right? Like the defense has been the biggest surprise so far this season. It was the weakest point of this team coming into, the 2023-24 season. Ask any NHL media pundit that was kind of analyzing this Flyers roster, and pretty much everybody said the Flyers defense does not look very good on paper. And even we said that, right? So, Travis Sanheim continuing to play like a number one defenseman, Cam York continuing to show that he could be a top pair option. And then obviously, Sealer and Walker both showing that they can, consistently play, second pairing top four type minutes here. If those things don't continue, then we'll see kind of a drop, because defense is a key to success in the NHL. If you don't have an adequate defensive core, playing solid for you at most times, it can be a rough stretch. So, I think really the key will be the defense, and then the team just buying in overall, as a five-man unit, continuing their kind of defensive stinginess here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said. All right. I just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Again, hit the notification bell for notifications when we release episodes, and follow us on Spotify and iTunes. Give us a rating on iTunes as well. It's a humongous help to us. All right. Next topic we have, and this is not exactly Flyers related, but I guess it's two former Flyers, Jaromir Jagr, and we just kind of wanted to bring this up just because it's interesting. And Nikolai Havibulin, both at 51 years old, are playing professional hockey. Javi Bullen just made his announcement. What was the team? I forgot to pull it up that he signed with.
Let me just find this real quick
Yeah, and I'll
for you.
mention Yager. So Yager has played 2 games so far for, I am not going to be able to say the first part of this name, Retifi Clando, in the
Cladno.
Clando obviously is what we would call him here. And Czechia, for the Czechia League. He already has 1 assist in 2 games. So very impressive to be 51 years old and still playing professional hockey, which is
Yeah, it's
crazy.
crazy for Yager. I mean, so for the Yager stuff, it makes sense because he owns Cladno. So like he owns the team. He's probably like, I feel like I want to play. I own this team.
He's also not a goalie.
Yeah, that too,
He's a
right? Like,
winger.
yeah, exactly. So in terms of positions in hockey where you could, coast a little bit more, you're not at the crux of every play. Winger would be one of them. Center, defenseman, goalie, those might be a little more crucial to the team overall. So for Yager, it's definitely interesting. It's funny that you have kind of Yager playing at 51 and Jake Voracek is the assistant coach on that team and the power play coach. So he's not even
That's a
playing,
great point. Yeah.
which is really interesting. Obviously, Yager, or not Yager,
Coaching the
obviously.
owner.
Yeah, obviously Voracek's got the concussion issue, so he probably can't play medically at this
Yeah.
point. But
He could
I wonder
probably
down,
play if that wasn't the issue.
yeah, right. Like I wonder down the line if you ever see Voracek get into games for Kladno, especially with him and Yager kind of being tight. You never know, right? If the health allows it, that'll be interesting. But Habib Bulin is the weird one. Obviously, really great career. Mainly, I mean, people know him for his days with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He won a cup with them. He was on the Blackhawks and the Oilers as well. Oilers were it was kind of near the end of his career. Blackhawks, they traded him the year before they won the cup, which is interesting now that I look at it. But for Habib Bulin just signing with Torpedo at 51, it's just nuts. Like for a goalie to be able to play professional hockey in the KHL, like probably top three in terms of like professional leagues in the world. And it's funny too because he was Torpedo's goaltending coach. So they literally just signed their goaltending
He's
coach to
like, you know
become the
what?
goalie.
I can do this.
I
Just
can't
these
coach
guys
these
aren't good
guys
enough. Yeah, I
anymore.
can't even
Yeah.
coach them anymore. Just let me step in. Let me handle this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. I
I
mean,
wonder
they're
like
probably just seeing it at practice. You know what I
yeah, I
mean? That he
know,
still got
right?
it.
I wonder if like he's still the goalie coach too. Like if that's like he's also the goalie
Yeah,
coach
because
and
you got to
he's
figure he's not going to play a ton of games at 51,
no.
right?
Yeah. And
He's
the
probably going to
season
be third string.
the contract is just until the end of the season. So like maybe he's like, like I just want to get into a couple games. I'm like
Yeah.
and I'll continue to be the coach
They
and they're like, "Sure, why not?"
Well, they must see some of their practice. He probably throws the pads on and plays with the team, and they're probably having trouble scoring on him. And they're like, maybe
Maybe
it's not
we
a
could
bad
use you as
idea.
a backup instead
Yeah,
of
yeah.
who we already have. I don't know, but yeah, that's just a fun thing we wanted to bring up because he thought
I
it's very
mean,
interesting.
not many
But
guys at 51 post their playing career in good enough shape to hop into a game. So it's
yeah,
yeah, especially sitting
well,
out. Like Yager really hasn't taken a break much.
it's been noted apparently that Habib Bulun is like a beast in the gym, similar to Yager. So
Yeah.
makes sense that like if you're going to be returning or playing any sort of professional level hockey at age 51, like both of them, you're going to be in like incredible shape,
You
right?
know, I wouldn't be surprised just because of where modern science is going and modern exercise science and all that and dieting that we do see players playing later in their life, kind
Yeah.
of moving forward, and we'll see more guys playing in their
I
50s, more guys playing in the NHL like that hit 40 even.
I think Crosby's going to be a great example. Like
He's going to play till
he's
he's like
he's
45.
that's what I mean.
Going
He's
to.
like 36 and he has the most goals ever so far in his career to this point in a season. Like he's having his
Yeah.
one of his best seasons for goal scoring ever. So like you just look at a guy like that who's not slowing down at all.
Yeah.
I guess you could say
And
the opposite is Ovechkin, who like looks like he has slowed down,
well,
but
but I
the
think
metrics have been there. It's more just been like the shooting percentage right now for Ovi. It's the lowest in his career that's ever been. All his underlying metrics are the exact same or very similar to last season. So like on paper, he should have almost the same goals as last year, but he just has career low shooting percentage. So that'll even probably change for him down the line at some
yeah,
point.
yeah, there's a good chance that that's going to balance out, or not even this season. If it doesn't balance out this season, it'll balance out next. But it might be a wake up call to Ovi. I'm not saying that he's lazy in the gym at all, but we know Crosby is meticulous about his
Yeah.
diet and all that stuff. And that's where it really starts to matter at the end of your career. And obviously, Giroux is very much like that too. Like he might have to just really focus on his health
Yeah.
as much as
Well,
anything. And Ovechkin, might need a little bit of a wake up call to be like, I need an edge, and I need to
maybe.
take
Well,
that up a notch.
you gotta factor in Yariv, like he's drinks Pepsi on the bench. Like that's a true thing. So like,
Right.
like
It, it,
he's always been a guy that's never really prioritized like
I
the
mean,
diet and stuff.
I've
So
seen him with his shirt off. He doesn't even look like an
yeah.
athlete. He's a guy who's kind of built, kind of given a gift from the time he's born. Not that the work ethic isn't there. It obviously is to get you to that level. But, at this age, you have to ramp your work ethic to be like Yager.
Yeah, exactly.
If you
To
want to
continue at
extend,
that level.
you got to be the guy who skates extra, the guy who does the extra stuff beyond what you normally had to do in the past. And I imagine Crosby is definitely doing that. And I don't know if Ovechkin's doing that. Again, I'm judging from an outsider's view, but I would imagine he might have to make some changes there if he does see this continue. Just an interesting story. Thought it was fascinating. All right. So the next thing I wanted to add, so typically we do a Phantoms update and a prospect update. I actually didn't have anything for the Phantoms, but the Phantoms are playing tonight, and Bob Roadtruck released the lineup, and I just thought there was something pretty interesting here.
Okay.
Um, Wade Allison has moved up to the top line with Tanner Lazinski and Ollie Lickshell. Now, Allison's been playing really well of lately. The thing that confuses me, though, which I can rationalize, is that Tuamala obviously gets sent to the third line to play with Avon and Brooks. And I guess you could make the argument it's a second line. Maruti, Denoyer, and Wilson are the second line, according to Bob. I would say 2 and 3 are interchangeable there to some degree. But the thing that confuses me is that Tuamala has been exceptional. Like, not just like, oh, he's been pretty good. He leads the team in points.
Yeah, he's
Maybe they want
really
to
playing well.
spread the scoring around. Maybe I think Allison's played a lot better of late. Maybe to reward Allison, get him with his buddy Lazinski, and see if you can get Allison going. Because obviously he's up to 6 goals at this point, which is not bad. But he should be doing much better than the point production he has so far. So I just thought it was an interesting, bit of information there. And Allison obviously trying to work his way back into the NHL as he's, probably should have been there this year. Um, so what do you think about that? What do you think about the whole Allison Tuamala switch? I'm a little disappointed, but Adam Brooks is back in the middle now, and he was out for a significant amount of time. And Brooks was very good in the AHL level last year. So, and is also a former NHL player. So, and Avon actually has been playing really well as well. So it's not necessarily that he's playing with scrubs, right? He's playing with their
Shifting the
better
depth
talent,
of yeah, shifting the depth,
but
right? So
still to
Brooke
break
gets
up
the
that top line that's been dominant for them. Right.
it's
So
weird. It's weird because obviously you have something that's working, so why break it apart like that? But maybe they think that having Lazinski, Brooks, and Allison, that's kind of more of a veteran top line, right? Maybe they can handle the checking a little better, and then you free Tuamala up, putting him on that third
yeah,
line matchup wise. He's
good point.
playing so much better. He's gonna be playing against lesser competition. Maybe he even lights it up further. Maybe that's the thinking. That's kind of all I can look at. Is Tuamala still? Is he still on that top power play? I'm guessing they probably didn't mention
Probably.
any of that.
Yeah, there's no mention of power play. I would imagine.
Yeah.
It would just seem silly because he's scoring like sniper
A
goals.
lot on the power play. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So
he's
I'd
killing it.
hope, yeah. So that's what I mean. I'd hope at least if they're going to decrease his 5-on-5 usage, like maybe they're seeing himself, right? Like we're not watching every
Right.
Phantoms game diligently. So maybe they're seeing a bit of a drop off in terms of energy, stuff like that. Like it is his rookie year, playing against, men in a league that can be more physical than what he's been used to playing in Finland, right? So maybe they're seeing a bit of wear and tear, and they
Yeah,
just want to kind of manage that.
that's a good point.
That could be a possibility, but it'll be interesting. I think, let's say they struggle with that lineup, I think they'll be quick to put it back together and kind of do another switch back to what was working, right? And that's
Just
the benefit of it, I
it's
guess.
just weird because the points per game for Tuamala is outpacing, I believe, Forrester and Denoye for their
Yeah,
rookie years. So it's just kind
he's
of
killing
strange to
it.
see. Yeah. But it is a very deep offensive pool. The bottom line there is Gendron, Gauthier, and Bellevue are the bottom line. So that one kind of makes sense. Gendron being played in a checking role, which is not really great for him, but that's probably temporary just because he's young and
Yeah.
he'll probably be moved up the lineup next year. The defense, Andres with Belpedio, who's back. I believe he's got a bunch of penalty minutes, but their top four is pretty much settled in with Andre Belpedio and then Mete and Adder, which I like the combination of a veteran with a young guy.
In
And then
both, yeah.
yeah, and then Yinning and Samson on the bottom pairing, which is a very big bottom pairing. So I like the defensive pairings. And then goaltending, it's Felix Sandstrom starting tonight and Cal Peterson is the backup. Pretty
Okay.
veteran heavy team, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Um,
they do. I mean, I'm not exactly sure where they are in terms of playoffs, but
well,
with a team.
in fairness, they haven't been winning that often,
Yeah,
so maybe
with
that's
a
their fault
team,
too.
with it, maybe yeah, that's why they're switching the lineup. But with a team like that, like even we said before the season, the depth they have, right? They should be a team that makes
They
the
are
AHL playoffs.
they are seventh in the. Oh no, that's yeah, they're seventh in the division.
That's not very good for
12,
like a
12,
deep
11,
team,
and
right?
4. Yeah, it's not good at all. It's out of the playoffs. So maybe that's why they're making changes. For
Yeah,
the
I
amount
wanted
of
to
talent they have,
mention
that's not great,
just a
especially with the goaltending.
couple just a couple Lehigh stats here before we kind of get into the rest of our topics. But Tanner Lazinski was named the PSECU Player of the Week.
He's
He had an
practically a
overtime
point per game.
Yeah, overtime winning goal at Charlotte, and then back-to-back multi-point games this past week for him. And then I had another stat here for Emile Andre, and he actually has 14 points in 19 AHL games, 9 points in his last 10 games. So he's been playing really well after being
Yes.
sent down. And if there is any sort of injury for the Flyers on defense here, obviously Mark Stahl's sitting out, but I would not be surprised if Andre also gets called up here because I do not think the Flyers are looking to have Stahl in the lineup on a nightly basis at this point, it seems, right?
Yeah, you might be right on that one. So let me just read this out before we move on. So point per game wise, because I think this is the most important stat. Because you can always look at the most points on the team, but it matters how many games a guy has played.
Of
So
course, yeah.
Tanner Lazinski is at a 0.96 points per game, which is very good, but also anticipated. Marudi and Tuamalo are both tied at a 0.889 points per game. Again, Tuamalo near a point per game for a rookie is exceptional. Ule Lixell is right behind them with a 0.87, and then Andre right behind them with a 0.74, which is very good for a defenseman. He is a -8, but like you said, the point production has gone through the roof. He has surpassed Ronnie Attard, who's at a 0.56. Who's it's not bad, but he's kind of hitting his mid 20s now, so you want to see a little bit more offensive production from Mattard. But I think you could say that about a few guys. Also, J.R. Avon is at a 0.45, which is good for a rookie. He's got 7 goals on the year in 22 games, 3 assists. Denoye taking still kind of a step back from last year, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points in 24 games. And then Allison's at a 0.37 points per game, 6 goals, 4 assists. And again, majority of those points have come lately, which is why you've seen him move up the lineup, because he was not producing pretty much at all to start the beginning of the year. And it looks like he's finally getting out. from under where he was, and that's why we're seeing him on the top line. So hopefully they win tonight. They need to really go on a run because they are in trouble of not making the playoffs if they continue. There's still plenty of games left, but
Yeah.
again, they're ranked pretty low in the division, so it's not looking good.
I'd
If
imagine
things
too,
continue.
like if they don't turn it around or if they miss the playoffs this season, I think with LaPerriere might kind of be the end of the rope for him
I
potentially.
I think so too. I don't think he's gonna get fired from the organization. I think
I
they'll
just
probably.
don't think he'll be the head coach of the Phantoms
I think there's
anymore.
a good chance he might not be the head coach of the Phantoms anymore, just because they can't afford to keep missing the playoffs at the AHL level. And you got to see if you can bring in a guy who's going to get more out of the Phantoms all the time. I think they still really like him, but he might maybe it's going to be one of those things where he becomes an assistant at the NHL level. Maybe he takes another role within the organization, and maybe he keeps his job too. We're not watching the games tightly. But it's just not good enough for the amount of talent that's on this team. Just straight up. All right. And then Helge Grans is not in the lineup because he's injured. He's gonna be out for a while. He had a surgery on a broken hand. So expect him to be out for a while. He probably won't make any kind of impact with the Phantoms till the end of the year and probably going into next year. All right, so quick prospects update here. Not too much. We'll end on Michkov. Start with Cutter Gauthier. Just wanted to point out he had an assist in the last game, so he does have one assist in one game for the team. Team USA is playing well from what I saw. But Cutter, I think he had in a game that didn't count. I think he had a goal and two assists, if I remember
I think
correctly.
in the pre-tournament, yeah.
The pre-tournament, yep, he had a goal and two assists, so he did put up big numbers in one of the games that just didn't count towards his productivity necessarily. But he was also named an assistant captain. It is a large list of captains on this team. There are four assistants, and man, the guy was it Lane Hudson that was
Yeah,
no,
Hudson's
it
the
wasn't
power play
Hudson.
QB.
Yeah, who the hell was picked as captain? I forgetting right now, but they have one captain and four assistant captains, and Cutter Gauthier got one of them. So nice to see him recognized from a leadership standpoint, and not surprising. And I imagine he's going to be. He was playing top line center, so that'll probably be the case throughout the entire tournament. I imagine, because he's a big body, and I love that he's playing center. They did
Yeah.
not shift him over to wing, and I think that's also really important. So
Top center, top power play, obviously, which is a good sign.
probably
He
best
mainly,
shooter on the team.
yeah, exactly. That's a really good shot, but he actually affects the game more with his passing ability on the power play against Norway, which is fun. But it's also just a thing to show, like, there's been talk essentially saying that he's very one-dimensional, only a shooter,
Yeah.
isn't the greatest with the passing. Like, just shows that, there's not a lot of people watching, obviously, the games that he's playing, because his passing ability is actually really good, and he has the ability to feather passes. Like you saw him kind of do that twice on Isaac Howard's fourth goal, or on the US's fourth goal. It was Isaac Howard who scored, but Gautier kind of almost fakes like he's gonna shoot, and there's a Howard's there open in the slot, and he kind of just feathers the touch pass over to him, and he redirects it. And then maybe like 10 minutes later, the same exact thing happens where they're on a power play. He's on his wing where he typically would take the shot, and instead of taking the shot when he gets the pass from Hudson, he tries to feather a pass. I forget who was in front of the net, but they try to redirect it in, similar to the fourth goal, and they just missed the net. So I just think that it's funny. Gautier opens the tournament up, and it's more the passing skill that's on display. Where you've heard, some individuals kind of state that he hasn't been the greatest there, where I kind of think that's
I
nonsense.
think
He
they're just
seems,
going off of stats.
yeah, exactly. Like he doesn't have like the most assists or anything like that, but it doesn't mean the guy isn't, a good passer, right?
It's like what you were saying about TK.
Yeah. It's all about who can capitalize on the actual chance you're creating.
Yeah,
So,
I'm interested to see how he does throughout this tournament, and I imagine he's going to be a big part of the penalty kill as well on that team. Just I cannot wait to see him. And uh, with Cutter, unlike the Michkov situation, we know he's coming at the end of this year.
yeah.
So, if the Flyers are in the playoffs, I mean, there's a good chance. I mean, the way the Phantoms are going, it's a good chance it's going to be with the Flyers. And I really don't believe he's going to spend time with the Phantoms next year. I could
Yeah.
be wrong about that, of course, but I just 2 years after being drafted, I don't see it happening. He's got the size, he's got the skill. I can't see how Tortorella won't love the guy. So I anticipate that the Flyers are kind of penciling him in as a roster option for next year. Not worrying about it much right now. Probably just worrying about his tournament and then getting him signed. But I do suspect he's gonna if his season ends somewhat early and the Flyers do make the playoffs. Actually, no, I think even if he's in the tournament, it would still work out. If his team even goes to the Frozen Four, I think it would still work out that he would could come over with the Flyers in the playoffs. And even if he doesn't play, I think it still would be good for him to be
It would
around the
just be
team.
very late, essentially. Like if he makes it to the finals of the Frozen Four, or is in the Frozen Four, like he would be coming in like the first or second week of April. So the Flyers would essentially have to make the playoffs for him to enter. If they
And
didn't, then he couldn't, right?
yeah, and yeah, of course. And we've seen rookie players come. I think Matthew Nyes did this,
Yes.
Kale McCarr, and they had big impacts in the playoffs. So I don't think just because he's a rookie, again, a player of his caliber, of his size and stature,
You know,
that might be a guy you can throw in the
with how
playoffs. So
bad the Flyers power play is, they could probably welcome his shot. So
that's a great point. And again, we didn't hesitate to throw Tyson Forrester in all those type of situations. And again, you look at what Tortorella loves about Forrester. I mean, what does Gautier not have that Forrester has?
yeah,
Experience. That's all. It's
probably a better shot than him already.
right,
So
exactly. Better hands, probably too. Better offensive game. But Forrester's defensive game is clearly underrated.
yeah.
He's been very, very good defensively for a rookie. And again, I get the Mark Stone comparisons now. Like, I see that, and that well, we would be.
He's a fraction of that. We'll be lucky, right?
That's what I'm saying. We'd be absolutely thrilled if he's a Mark Stone type of player. That's an exceptional NHL player and great in all situations. All right. The next one, and this one will be quick, but Oliver Bonk, we mentioned this before. He is playing in the top four for Team Canada. He did have an assist. So nice to see him get on the board there. He's got one assist in 2 games officially.
Yeah.
So nice to see him kind of playing a role there. Don't have much to say beyond that. But again, I think it's awesome to see him get the experience with Team Canada. Again, this is a loaded program. So if he's in that top four, that's saying a lot. And if he's going to produce, that's awesome. And I'd love to see how he takes that into the London Knights when he returns.
Yeah, for Bonk, it's great for him to get on the scoreboard here. I mean, it's 10-0 Canada against Latvia, so you'd hope he can sneak an assist in there somewhere. The 10-0 game. I mean, that's a tough one for Latvia to come to that tournament, all those young guys, and just get blasted 10-0. I
I
mean,
think I think a lot of them are happy to be there, though.
yeah,
It
of
still
course.
sucks, but they know who they're playing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
I think they
another
just
thing to
hope for
point
less
out.
than double digits, right?
Yeah, another thing to point out for Bonk is that assist came on the power play, so he's even getting some power play usage. So
Good
that's
point.
interesting as well because he's always been a guy where people have said, the offensive acumen is lacking, but obviously Team Canada does not think that. They're using him in a power play role, so that's a good sign
He
and
he's also a guy I
potential.
think is underrated
I agree. The
at what
passing
he.
ability
Yep.
is pretty good, and I mean he's putting up a lot of assists in the OHL. And I wanted to bring up one thing about Bonk, just about his positioning and the body contacts. Steve Kornianos, our official prospect analyst, the draft analyst himself, actually tweeted this out about Bonk, but he was essentially saying that it's interesting that Bonk pretty much invites body contact because he trusts his own positioning. That's how well positioned he is. Steve stated before Celebrini scored, I believe that was one. That was the fourth or the fifth goal in that game. So before he scored, Bonk ate a dump in the corner. He waited for two Latvian players to essentially forecheck him, then trapped them in the corner, did an escape move, and then started the breakout. And then eventually the goal happened. So
Nice.
just shows the smarts, right? Like he's essentially using his size, his positioning to his advantage, kind of gets away from those forecheckers and then starts to play up ice that creates a goal. So just shows a lot of the hockey IQ and the positioning. I think that's really what the Flyers were looking for when they drafted him, was that he was really mature defensively for his age. So
Yeah.
that's something you want to look at, right?
And
In
and
terms
also
of defensive help.
and also I talked about this quite a bit. A lot of guys, and we compared him to Duncan Keith, or at least did a comparison, not comparing him to, but a lot of these guys who don't come in with a lot of offensive gusto, who have something missing in their game. And I've talked about this a lot with defensemen, is like these are a lot of times the guys who end up being the top defensemen in the league, because they have the defensive game there,
Yeah.
and then they work on their offensive game over several years. and get it to a point where, look, he's probably not going to be Cale McCarr putting up, 70 to
But could he be a
100 point.
30 to 40 point
I,
defenseman potentially, right?
I think 30, 100%. I think it's more, is he going to be a 50
Yeah,
point
exactly.
guy? And I think it's absolutely doable for a guy with his skill set. Again, very early, but that's the type of player I would hope that he develops into, is a true top pairing, putting up 50 points a year, playing against the team's best players. And get a complimentary top pairing guy where he probably won't be a number one,
A good
but
number two.
a very good number two, right? And a lot of those times, those guys are number ones by default. And Steve said something on here that I didn't completely agree with, where he said like he said the correct thing with the Stanley Cup winners, but he said like every team's got that guy. I don't find that to be the case. Most teams in the NHL do not have a top defender in the league. There's really just like 10 of them.
All the
And then
best teams, all the playoff teams,
yeah,
essentially.
most teams do not have a legit number one guy. And like I've heard Noah Hannafin be that guy, and he's not. He's not that guy. He hasn't been the guy this year. He actually has never been that guy.
He's a good
And
number two or number three, but
right,
he's not a
exactly,
number one.
exactly. He's
So
not a number one. So um, Edmonton doesn't have one. Chicago doesn't have one. They might have paid those guys like they are, but they're not.
Jones is a
Um,
really good number two, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
even the
exactly.
Flyers, hypothetically, like if you're looking at all the best defensemen in the league, like Travis Sanheim isn't matching up against, Cale Makar, all these best defensemen. He's
Right.
probably on a really like cup contending team. He ideally would be like a, top pair number two potentially.
Yeah, the way he's playing this year. I mean, I will say if he continues doing what he's doing though, I think he has 22
Seven or
points or 24 points on the year.
um
24
yeah.
points. I mean, he is on pace to be in a Selkie type of
Norris.
Thank you. In a Norris type of conversation. I don't think he will win. I think the
Yeah, yeah.
competition is vastly too steep, and he's never going to produce as high as like Quinn Hughes and McCarr, and he's not that guy.
You just
But
off the
the
power
role,
play,
yeah,
right?
the role that he's playing is he's playing exceptional. So like he is playing at a number one level right now, but to be a true number one defenseman, you have to do it for multiple years too. It's not just one and done. Because
Yeah.
there are lots of defensemen who've had really great one seasons, or two seasons. You have to do it every year. So hopefully that is the case with Sanheim, but he has not proved that. I just think he's going to be in that conversation where he might get some votes, for a 3 or 4,
Yeah, just based
position.
on the Flyers defense too that's
Right,
surrounding him,
exactly. The
I
same
think.
way that Couturier is going to get noticed exceptionally for what they've done with this team and how they've elevated them defensively. That cannot be ignored. I mean,
Yeah.
Sanheim has been the backbone of the Flyers defense without a doubt. All right. And the last player that we'll talk about before we wrap up here is Matvey Michkov. We went into him already, lots of depth, but there was kind of a Russian mandate that went out from Putin, and it created like a little bit of a stir of articles about how Russian players, that they're gonna have to be in Russia for 5 years before they can go anywhere. Blah 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 blah. I'll say this: doesn't change a goddamn thing. Don't care. It's Bill Meltzer said it really well. That it's a nothing burger. It's kind of a nothing of an article because it doesn't mean anything or really affect the Flyers, in my opinion. And if there is a deal to bring him over, you guys aren't going to hear about it. It's going to happen probably after the case. And look, it was unlikely he was coming over here next year. I think it's still possible, but this is what I said since he was drafted. Every year they're going to try to have this conversation, and every year they're going to try to buy out that contract and see if there's something that'll work out. And if it doesn't, it won't, and you won't hear about it anyway. And they might have already had conversations for all we know. But the Mitch Cobb thing, I don't really think it changes much. Again, worst case scenario, he's finishing out that contract anyway for us. And then best case scenario, we get him out a year early, which is kind of what I'm still hoping for, is that not next year because they're already going to bring in Cutter Gauthier in. That's awesome if they bring them both in at the same time. Typically, it doesn't happen. But I think it would be ideal if they can get him out a year early. And they'll have to pay a significant amount of money to buy out that contract anyway, because they're going to have to pay in excess of what that contract is worth. So
Yeah.
I do believe they'll make all of that money back, but I think it's important to remember that. And also just to let everybody know that Mitchkov is finally back as well. He obviously had a post online And he seems to finally be back from pneumonia. And Vasili, we said that maybe he's playing tomorrow or maybe the day this comes out. Um,
Yeah,
that
whatever Sochi's next game
Yeah,
will be, he should be returning to the lineup. I believe there was like a fans versus pros type of like event or like um game that the KHL does, and Mitchkov participated in that. So due to that, I mean, you can expect he'll be back. But just in terms of like the mandate that Putin kind of mentioned, where these young 17-year-old, 18-year-old players will have to stay, in KHL team control for 5 years before they come over. Like the first thing to mention is um, I don't believe there's anything official like signed by the KHL. Like obviously, like Putin's very involved, with the Continental Hockey League in general, so maybe there doesn't need to be anything official in writing. But I'd assume that if there's going to be something like this, there has to be some agreement in place so it can be tracked legitimately.
yeah,
So that first of all hasn't been signed yet. It's just all hearsay. So there's really nothing official. But even if that was going to be the case, at least for Michkov, it doesn't really affect him because it's all about players that haven't signed a KHL deal or players that were just recently drafted. Like 17-year-olds or players that are going to their draft seasons. And this is already, past Michkov by all of these things, right? He's been drafted. His draft season is well over with. He's already in his draft plus one season, basically going to go into his draft plus two seasons. So this is going to affect Matvey Michkov, right? Like it's going to affect potentially, maybe if this does go into effect, Russian players that might get drafted this year, or Russian players that might get drafted down the line in a few years. But what it really is and what the KHL wants to do is they want to try to limit these younger Russian players from going over to, the CHL, let's say as, 18 years old, and, instead playing in
great
the,
point.
in
Great
the,
point.
in the A, or instead of playing in the AHL, for example, or something like that, they stay under KHL control where they can either play in that KHL or they play in the minor league, which would be the VHL instead,
Well, they
right?
got to get better at developing players and not playing 3 minutes a night when they're superstars in the league. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that much.
I agree. So I think like you alluded to, and kind of what Bill Meltzer said on Twitter as well. It's kind of a nothing article in the sense that this doesn't affect Michkov. So from a Flyers perspective, there's really no weight or really nothing to be concerned about.
And obviously
Um,
doesn't affect Kolosov.
yeah, exactly. He's been signed to an NHL contract at this point. So realistically, it's more just about any players that might be drafted going forward. But once again,
Maybe
nothing.
Demidov, who hasn't been drafted.
Yeah, or maybe Anton Silayev, who is, that big 6'8" Russian defenseman that everybody's kind of highly touting as like a top five type of pick. But like I was saying also, none of this has really been put into, official writing, and there's no official statements or official contracts or really anything released of that nature. It's really just like a press release and like media kind of running with it. So until you
Sounds
see
about right.
something, yeah, until you see something official, like who really knows what's happening. But I would also say too that, for the KHL, getting Russian players that are really in prominent positions that are really talented over to the NHL and kind of promoting Russian players and promoting that is actually a good thing for their league, because it shows how their league and the players that do really well in that league can translate to the NHL level. So I think in general, like stopping them is actually a bad thing because it takes away from what the KHL is doing in a sense. But I don't know. Until something actually like is put into action, you see legitimate like documents or official announcements from the KHL announcing some type of thing like this. I just think it's something that's kind of getting blown out of proportion a bit. But that's my
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, as if that's never happened before. And everything around Mitchkov is going to be super sensitive, and everybody's going to try to get a story out of it, to get clicks and views because it works. I mean,
It
everybody is
does,
paying
yeah.
attention to him. So, any single bit of information is going to get blown out of proportion when it comes to him. Before we end, I do want a quick Phantoms update here. Well, what Lappy did worked. The Flyers, or I'm sorry, the Phantoms, they did give up the first goal to Max Willman, scored, former
That's
Flyer and Phantom,
interesting.
11 seconds into the game. But then they proceeded to score three goals, about a minute and a half apart each one. They're up 3-1. One of those goals by Wade Allison. The other one, Garrett Wilson, and then Alexis Gendron also scored the third goal
So
there.
see, what do
So
we really know, right? We're not the coach,
yeah,
so
so yeah, it seems to be working already, and I would say they're all must-win games right now for the
yeah.
Phantoms. So they need to to win, and
definitely.
they scored 3 goals on 4 shots. So
So yeah, the goaltender's not having a fun time over they're going up against,
yeah,
obviously. But one final thing I wanted to mention actually before we end, and this is actually just out of Flyers practice, and it's from John Tortorella. This is Kevin Kurz. He works for the Athletic, really nice guy. Tweeted this out, but it's essentially just Tortorella's thoughts on what it means to reach his 1,500th game coached. So that'll be on Friday against Seattle. Will be John Tortorella's 1,500th game. So Kevin Kurz asked him this. So Tortorella on hitting 1,500 games on Friday. This is the quote from Torts. The only thing I'm thankful that people have entrusted me to let me work with athletes. It's been my life. I appreciate people having a little faith in allowing me to work with them. That's all. I don't give a shit about the number 1,500. I just like coaching. I like being around the players, and I really appreciate and am humbled by the opportunities I've been given. And then there's another quote where Kevin Kurz asks what he likes about coaching. It's kind of tongue in cheek and a little bit sarcastic, so you can all take it this way. But it's a very funny quote from John Tortorella. But Torch essentially says, "Teach. I love teaching the controversy, the conflicts, the good stuff, the winning, the losing, how to figure it out. I like being with the athletes. I like being in that locker room. Everything else about the game, I can't stand. I like being there in the locker room, teaching them and being on the bench with them. I can't stand being out here with you media guys. I'd rather be in there right now. So can we end this?" So I thought that was a really funny and classic way to kind of end, the quote there for Tortorella, right? Just he has always had that, little battle with the media. So just the fact that he kind of said, "Can we end this?" is just, classic
he like doesn't
Torch.
even care that he's being celebrated. I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. It's really, really
Yeah,
funny. So just thought it was a funny little tidbit to end the show on there.
fantastic. All right. Let's call it on that. Yeah, we'll be back next week. I think we're gonna be doing grading next week. Oh no, we're not. We're gonna push that back. We'll figure out topics. We'll have games to talk about. And then unless anything changes, we're gonna have Bill Meltzer on January 9th. So excited to get Bill back on here. So not the next episode, but the one right after that, we'll have him on and looking forward to that. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, there'll be an article paired with this show today, so keep an eye out for that on Flyers Nitty Gritty, and I'll have articles, just coming out about the team in general as we kind of move into the second half of the season here, and just keep an eye out for all the content on the website on flyersnittygritty.com. Tons of great articles and just great breakdowns. So we appreciate the support, and you guys keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just want to remind everybody to please like, subscribe, share, hit the bell for notifications about when we release these episodes. Follow us on Spotify and iTunes. Again, shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks on 4th and South. You can get their cheesesteaks at DoorDash through the app. They're doing deliveries. And again, just to reiterate what Vasili said, thank you guys all so much for listening to us. Your support is immense, and we're always checking to see the views, and it becomes addicting when you guys are really into it. And we look forward to continuing to provide Flyers nitty gritty content and getting gritty with it. And you guys are awesome. So again, we love you guys, and remember, always stay gritty.